Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a dark side. I don't normally do full episodes like this one, but I think it's good news and it shows the tenacity of two women to put a pedophilic rapist behind bars. It's the case of Davie Albarran right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, your weekly true crime podcast telling you cases of heartbreak that turn to homicide. I am your host, Kai, and this episode is a day late, but not a dollar short. I don't have an excuse for why it's a day late, but we're just going to get into the episode. In today's episode, we're discussing a case of two daughters who worked hard and diligently to put their own father behind bars. Before we begin, I want to say that this episode is sponsored by my lambs in Patreon, patreon.com/love and murder. In the meantime, grab your butts, grab your BJ's apple juice, murderandlove.com/BJ's, and let's get into some love and murder. Now, I want to start off by saying that this case is still ongoing, so everything I say here is alleged for legal reasons. 51-year-old Davie Albarran, who is a father of 6, had a track record of pedophilic rape with victims as young as 4 years old and as old as 16. These victims claimed that they were seriously sexually assaulted by Davie, with several claiming rape, including a 4-year-old. As far as I could tell through the reports, he's left a trail of 24 traumatized children in his wake. Quote, he has traumatized generations of women. The trauma he has left behind is still visible on their faces. He deserves to pay for every single one of his victims he has hurt. This is a quote of one of his daughters. Speaking of his daughter, 30-year-old Yaneiry Albarran revealed that her own daughter spoke up. This is how all this started. On November 25th, 2022, at 11 p.m., Yaneiry received a phone call from one of her sisters, Francesca Albarran. She told her that Yaneiry's daughter confided in her that she'd been abused by her grandfather for 3 months. Davie, who was homeless, but Yaneiry had taken her father in so that he wouldn't be sleeping in his car, was confronted when he came back to Yaneiry's house. Quote, I loved my father. He was my best friend, and we had such a beautiful relationship. On November 25th, 2022, that all changed. Once I found out that he hurt what was most precious to me, our love was out the window. The night of the confrontation, I got a phone call from my older sister about my daughter. She spoke up about being sexually abused by my father at a little girl's sleepover, and then another little girl came forward and said the same. I confronted my father and completely lost it. I snapped, like I just went nuts. I hit him a couple of times and I was throwing things, breaking things. And I was saying to him, don't lie to me. I was throwing his stuff everywhere. I was throwing things at his car. I was going crazy. He was my best friend. The fact that he did this to me, I just couldn't believe it. He ran to his car and just drove off. That is the last time I saw him. End quote. His other daughter, 33-year-old Anna Albarran, said, quote, when I found out what he'd done, I was enraged. Then I found out about other possible victims, and I was like, we're going to get him. So me and my sister sat down, and we decided we were going to let everyone know who he was, but also that we were also going to personally hunt him down, end quote. So Yaneiry and Anna made it their mission to hunt their father down and get him arrested. To the sisters, this seemed like it was just never going to happen, or they were going to be fighting for the rest of their life, especially because 2 things. Number 1, they had no idea where he was. And number 2, some of their extended family was helping him and protecting him. Why do people do that? I don't understand that at all. As for the victims, the sisters said that everyone who came forward was very consistent with their stories of how they were allegedly abused and or how they were allegedly raped. Quote, there are two that he allegedly groomed, like he would pretend like he was a father figure or a teacher, and then he told them that no one would believe them. So during their investigation, they checked out more than 40 motels. At one point in time, I saw it said like 49 motels and various houses or just various places that he was spotted. So they went up and down checking all these places. At one point, they almost caught him at a Friendly Village Inn motel between Kissimmee and St. Cloud, Florida. When they got to this motel, the reason why they thought he was there was because they saw some family members bringing him food. So they just figured he was there. So they told the sheriff's office out there, but by the time they got to the motel, he was not there. Let me take a brief break here, and if you're still listening, first, thank you. And second, be sure to subscribe right now to Love and Murder on whatever platform you're listening on so you don't miss a case. For bonuses and extras, you can also subscribe to my Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder. And when you sign up, you won't get interruptions like this one or commercials. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. So then Anna kicked it up a bit. She posted this information on social media. So she posted it on Facebook first, and then she posted it on TikTok, where she had 96,000 followers. That post got 3.7 million likes in the bid to hunt her father down. They also raised money to put 2 billboards up in Orlando. Then he got featured on America's Most Wanted TV show. After that, everything changed. Quote, what we were doing was like you see on a cop show, a wall chart with red strings everywhere and photos on the board. We built up a database of locations, car license plates, information of his friends, you name it. I called every job he had, went to every apartment complex he ever lived. My husband and I went looking for him at every motel where we felt he had a lead, even at 2 a.m. in the hopes of catching him. We were hunting him down. We were doing everything. We have a video of some of our family showing up to empty out his room at this rinky-dink motel, and we find out he was there the day before. I figured out his whole life, his friends, and anybody I believed was involved in helping him. There was not one day that we stopped. We looked for him every day he was gone. When he went on the show, all the friends of the other side of the family started snitching. They were so afraid because I'm saying, if I find out you helped hide my father, I'm posting your picture on social media. If I find out you have him, I'm going to post up your address. Like you're going to get repercussions for hiding my father. They were freaking out. So they were freaking out only because of what will people think of me? Oh my God, social media, everybody's going to know. Not that you were freaking out because you were doing something immoral. Like, really? Wow. It's amazing when people, I'm going to say, if it's amazing, if you could see inside people, like their hearts, their minds, you would really see what people are like. People pretend just so they can get the admiration of other people. They pretend. I'm not going to say everybody. A lot of people do this, not everybody. So you helped this guy knowing he was a fugitive, and the only reason you started freaking out and snitching was because she said she was going to post your information on social media and your picture, and now everyone will know who you are. That's what made you freak out. Wow. They also tracked him to a former girlfriend's house who she had no idea, like she was innocent. She had no idea that he was wanted. Finally, after the America's Most Wanted aired, they got a tip from a woman who was renting him a room between July and October of 2023. He had told her that his name was Max. Anna said, quote, she didn't know until America's Most Wanted that he was wanted for those horrible crimes. She's innocent, and she is the one who told us who must be helping him. As a result, I used Snapchat location for one of my relatives to pinpoint where I believe he was hiding out. Then I called the sheriff's office and I said, I promise he's there. Go look for him. Quote, Madeline and her husband Angel bought the place in November last year, and they immediately started building things like that shed he was hiding in and that boundary fence, said a neighbor who was around the area where Davie was found. My husband Steve met Angel a couple of weeks after they arrived, and shortly afterwards I went out to the fence line where Madeline was there and spoke with her. She had somebody else with her, and she introduced him as her brother Max, but it was Davie. Her brother didn't say anything and seemed to keep his head down a bit. Then I noticed that he seemed to be there all the time with the other relations, who Madeline has said were her 2 daughters who have babies. Madeline and Angel were mostly there just at the weekends. Generally, they laid low, kept to themselves. They did their own thing. You didn't see much of them other than the building work, which was mostly Davie, who I thought was called Max. Then in a video that was actually sent in with a tip, this shows Davie helping out and giving directions to two men who were building that fence that I was talking about. And in the video, you could hear young children who were trying to help. And at one point in the video, you hear Davie tell one of them, quote, "You can't come over here." The neighbor goes on to say, quote, "Most days Davie was working around the property on that fence, his shed, a chicken coop, goat corrals, and a playhouse. I didn't think much of it at the time. I have 5 kids. I've got a grandson. To Madeline, you guys want to harbor someone who's like that? You want to condone someone who's allegedly doing that, and then you want to lie about it? We have no business with anyone like that in our neighborhood." So when police arrived at the location, they found Davie in a shed beside the main house. And when they first approached him and asked him who he was, he said that his name was Jose Rodriguez. And then he broke down and admitted who he was, because I guess he didn't have ID that said Jose or Max or anything other than Davie. The sisters go on to say that, quote, "We almost had him 4 times. That was when he was at the Friendly Motel, when he was living at the house of a former girlfriend, and when he was staying at the home of a woman between July and October last year. I gave the cops all that information. Pretty much we solved our own case. We would tell them we know where he was, and they would say, we don't want to know where he's been. We want to know where he is. And I'm thinking, where's the investigation part? I almost found him myself 4 times. I'd give the cops the information. They'd drive around and wouldn't see him. When I called the cops to say that my father was at Madeline's residence, I took Benadryl and went to sleep because I didn't think they would get him. Then an officer texted me at 6 in the morning and said, good job. So I rang and he said, you got him. And I'm screaming and sobbing because I don't have to spend my nights wondering, is he hurting another child? And then we saw his first appearance and we thought, he's in jail right now because of us and the people who helped us. So what happened was Davie did move in with his sister Madeline and her husband Roland Nunez, who is 38, after they bought this house in December 2023. Then what they were building, like I said, was a security boundary fence to surround it. And this was like a huge fence where you couldn't really see through it. So I guess he could be on the property without any problems. When you went out to the property, you could see toys and you can see the shed where he was captured, which was behind the house. Neighbors said that they had seen children living there, but they didn't really go there because there were signs warning against trespassing. The neighbor, Sharon Filsinger, who's the one who turned in the video footage, said, quote, there are various related families who live there. 2 toddlers run around in the yard, sometimes just in a diaper, hardly ever with clothes on. It makes me sick to my stomach to think that those babies were running around when Davie was hiding out. They were in the shed with him at times. He was around the kids all the times. I just don't even want to think about it. It makes me completely ill. So Davie was arrested on Sunday, February 18th, 2024. And when Sharon, the neighbor, went to talk to his sister, she said, quote, I saw her and asked, how's your brother Max? And she said, oh, he's doing good. He should be getting out soon. He's innocent. She also claimed that he wasn't living there. And I said, well, I've got video of him. Speaking of Madeline, her and her husband were arrested on March 1st and charged with felony accessory after the fact of a capital felony for allowing Davie, a fugitive with active warrants, to hide out at their home. Polk detectives decided to arrest them after an investigation, and they were able to establish enough evidence showing that Davie's sister and her husband knew what they were doing. Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd said, quote, we believe at the time that Davie Albarran and Angel Nunez were knowingly harboring Davie Albarran, but we had to gather evidence and proof that they knew he was a fugitive from justice on these horrible child sex abuse charges. These 2 knowingly helped Davie Albarran hide from law enforcement and had been doing so for months. Now they are both facing a very serious felony charge. So Davie was on the run for 451 days, but now he is in prison. And under a signed law in Florida, which went into effect in 2023, the death penalty can be imposed in Florida for sexual battery of a child aged 12 and under. So because Davie is accused of this crime, in addition to lewd and lascivious conduct and child abuse, he could be going to prison for life and actually get the death penalty. His daughters also told of the huge personal toll this manhunt has taken on them. Anna almost suffered a breakdown and her marriage almost ended. And she also became so depressed that, for some time she was even unable to brush her teeth. Quote, "It will be an honor for him to know that we are the reason for him to leave the earth." And that's what Yaneiry is quoted as saying. And that is the case of Davie Albarran and how his daughters put him behind bars. So what did you think about that case? I'd love to hear from you. And for today's poll, I'm going to ask you, if someone in your family, actually let me narrow it down. If your parent, one of your parents, did this, would you go to the same length as these women? Yes or no? In the poll, your answer is anonymous, so even I can't see it. I can't see who you are. So answer honestly without fear of judgment. Would you turn your father in or your mother in if they raped children? Speaking of polls, let's go through some of your comments from last episode. So last episode was a conversation about male domestic abuse, which is something that does need to be spoken about more. And so it was the case of Alex Skeel. And I asked, would you believe a man who said that they were a victim of physical domestic abuse? And 100% of y'all said, yes, you would. Emily Wire said, I loved it. There's definitely a double standard when it comes to domestic violence. I also bet there are a lot of men who don't come forward. Yeah, Emily, there are a lot of men. It's actually documented that most men don't come forward for their domestic abuse, whether it's physical, mental, emotional. They don't talk about it because their friends, family, even the police will laugh at them and not take them seriously. Christina Bobo said, I would most certainly believe him because most men don't report abuse. If I met one who did, I would absolutely take it seriously. You delivered with this one. Thank you, Christina. I really thought that this episode needed to be done because we always hear of the women who are abused. We never hear of the men who are abused. And I believe also that Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case kind of made men feel more comfortable with coming out. So this is what I think. But also before the Johnny Depp case came out, Terry Crews, even though it's not domestic abuse, he was coming out about sexual abuse, came out that he was being sexually harassed in Hollywood by certain people and nobody took him seriously. So it's even that. A woman can say she's sexually harassed. We will take it seriously. Even if it's a lie, we will say guilty until proven innocent. You're completely guilty. And that has happened to a lot of these people. They've lost jobs based on that. And it comes out that this woman completely didn't tell the truth. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't take it seriously. We should definitely investigate and take it seriously. Don't just, sweep it under the rug. But at the same time, you know what? This is a whole different conversation for a whole different show. But my point was, even with the sexual abuse, men are laughed at and they're seen as, well, is that a bad thing? A woman grabbed you down there? Isn't that a good thing? Shouldn't you have taken her to your room or something like that? It's not taken as seriously as if a woman said it. So it's the same thing for the domestic abuse. If a man says he's been abused, they're like, well, couldn't you have handled yourself? They more don't take him seriously and take the woman seriously. Like if she hit him and the police come and she'll just turn on the waterworks and say, he hits me. And that's it. That's it. He's done. They don't even listen to his side. He's done. So I just thought this was something that needed to come forth. Mary O'Neill said that she would. And Christina Bobo also said, I'm curious to know if she's abusive to her new boo. Well, if she hasn't turned over a new leaf, I can guarantee you that she is, but he's too embarrassed to come out and tell anybody anything. Not because of what we were talking about, but because they warned him and he said, y'all don't know what you're talking about. And he continued on with the relationship. So that's all I have for you. Don't forget to go and answer this week's poll. If one of your parents was a rapist, a pedophilic rapist of children, which is what pedophile means, would you do your due diligence like these girls and get them off the streets to stop what they're doing? And before you go, don't forget that an easy and free way to help me out is by simply sharing this episode. Just go ahead and hit that share button And share to your social media, share to your friends' WhatsApp, share to your friends' text messages, share, 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 share. And as always, we end each episode by reminding you that it's all love and no murder, y'all. See you in the next episode. Bye. Hey, before you go, don't forget to leave me 5 stars on whatever platform you listen to this episode on. Whatever platform you listen to this episode on, it'll help me out greatly. Thank you. Bye.